Well, what do I know about politics? I know enough about modern day politics to realise that it's not working here in the UK. Hence, the solution is in the title, reform. Political reform is definitely needed. And it doesn't take the brains of Elon Musk to realise that. What do I know? Now, I do know about national security. I do know about safety. I do know about personal safety. I do know about community. I do know about...
Starmer walked in thinking this would be another calm, scripted debate, only to collide with Ant Middleton, the human wrecking ball with a beard, who shredded the expected format in seconds. One moment, Starmer was outlining policies with his usual cautious cadence. The next, Middleton had him verbally contorted, left scrambling as if every sentence he delivered had been twisted into confetti. The trigger? Middleton's relentless, in-your-face style, mixing raw energy, tactical questions, and that kind of relentless confidence that leaves no room for a polished, neutral facade. Now, every time someone mutters sass, Starmer visibly flinches, a reminder that no carefully prepared script can survive the storm of unpredictability. This takedown isn't just awkward, it's chaotic, more dishevelled than Boris Johnson's hair in a hurricane, leaving Starmer's composure in tatters and the audience grinning at the spectacle.
We publish a white paper on immigration, a strategy absolutely central to my plan for change that will finally take back control of our borders. Between 2019 and 2023, net migration quadrupled until in 2023, it reached nearly 1 million. That's about the population of Birmingham, our second largest city. That's not control, it's chaos. A one-nation experiment in...
It began like any other tame week in the political swamp, with Starmer likely adjusting yet another beige tie and rehearsing his mastery of indecision. Then came the thunder of boots smashing through polished rhetoric. Ant Middleton had arrived, and someone was about to get completely annihilated.
I'll leave that to the politicians. But listen, what I do know is national security, and that's what we're going to touch on very first and foremost. Now, when I spoke to Nigel and the wider team a couple of years ago, for those that don't know, I do a TV show called SAS, Who Dares Wins, where I bring in broken people and I strip them down so they can identify who they are, so they have an identity, and then I build them back up to go out into the world and to achieve. And I got asked a question by Nigel and his wider team saying, could you do that with a broken country? How do you do that? And we went through how
For those blissfully out of the loop, Ant Middleton isn't your garden variety social media keyboard warrior. This is a man who scaled mountains, commanded elite military units in life or death situations, and somehow survived British reality TV without decking a producer. When he talks leadership, he's not rearranging committees with a polite smile. He means dragging yourself across a battlefield with a shattered leg, because quitting simply isn't in the vocabulary. So, naturally, when this ex-Special Forces powerhouse stared at Starmer, blinking awkwardly into the political void, he had thoughts, loud, piercing, and unmistakably military grade.
I'm not going to avoid any taxes. I'm going to come away from the way that he runs the country. He's got no ambition, he's got no drive, and he's just off-putting. I'm going to spend my time between Dubai and Spain. You know, I'm not going there to try and save money. I won't have an income coming from the UK, so you know I don't need to be here. And
what is it about? But Labour have only been in for I think 2 months. So what have they done so catastrophically wrong?
Well, you're talking about the next budget of what they're going to start rising.
Let's rewind a moment. If you want to feel the full force of this takedown, you need to understand what Starmer actually brings to the leadership table. Spoiler, it isn't leadership. This is the man who approached Brexit like someone ordering tapas while wrestling commitment issues. He's turned turns into performance art, 1 minute pro-nationalisation, the next watering it down like a cheap cocktail at a dry wedding. Ask a direct question and you'll get a 14-minute dissertation ending with, "We're exploring options." Ant Middleton doesn't explore options, he executes. He's not here for political theatre, grey-suited dithering, or very serious tones that accomplish nothing. When Middleton struck, it wasn't just an angry man with a beard, it was an indictment, a punchline with boots, practically carving Starmer a new political personality with sheer disdain and military-grade intensity. He framed the Labour leader as the sort of guy who, dropped into a military operation, would spend 45 minutes forming a committee to name the mission and then retreat the moment the enemy sent mean tweets. Leadership, Middleton reminded everyone, is standing tall while everything collapses, not politely adjusting your lapel pin while polling advisors.
Lost my identity, I got confused. When you have a nation of confused people, guess what happens after? Frustration. You get frustrated. Like the individual, very much like the individual. What happens after frustration? Anger. Anger, violence. Violence. What's happening on our streets right now? Violence. Or it teeters into civil unrest, which we want to avoid at all costs. But it's coming.
The internet reacted exactly as you'd expect, with joy and enough memes to power the next 4 elections. Starmer getting dismantled by Ant Middleton wasn't just funny, it was essential. The verbal defibrillator Britain didn't know it needed. TikTok exploded with clips of Middleton's blunt truths over Starmer blinking like he'd just lost at political charades. Twitter briefly became an Ant Middleton fan club, and even people who hadn't cared about politics since Tony Blair's hair-dominated headlines were asking, "Wait, why is this guy in charge of anything?" Because, let's be real, Starmer has all the inspirational oomph of a middle manager at a stationery convention, treating every crisis like he's apologising for a late invoice. Then comes Ant Middleton, pure intensity, pure clarity, showing that Britain's supposed alternative leader couldn't even guide a dog through a park without overthinking the leash. The contrast was savage. One of them has literally led men into situations where a single mistake can mean someone doesn't make it home.
We live in an island of strangers.
I think our country has benefited over very many years through generations from people coming to the UK, being part of our communities and working in our public services. But I also think that the level of migration needs to be controlled and managed, and it needs to come down.
So we are living in partial island of strangers then?
Well, I think we're a country that I think has a really strong country.
Are we or are we not an island of strangers, do you think?
No, I think we're a country where everybody, I think, wants to...
The other Starmer gets flustered if anyone dares ask whether he supports striking nurses. Middleton's point wasn't just about policies, it was about the terrifying void at the heart of his leadership. Conviction without courage, direction without purpose, politics without a pulse. It stung because it was true. Britain isn't just fed up with scandals, it's exhausted by emptiness, vague slogans, tepid statements, corporate-style answers to human problems. When Middleton stormed in with a verbal roundhouse kick to the solar plexus of mediocrity, people cheered, literally and figuratively. Suddenly, Starmer's greatest non-hits were in full view. Half-hearted backing of strikes until someone important frowned, ghostly green policy announcements, and his endless effort to be all things to all people, which usually means being nothing to anyone.
I don't think that the Russians are going in there and they're having an easy time, because they're certainly not. I know people who are on the ground in Ukraine, and they're quite happy at the moment, actually, because they're actually holding them. They think they can genuinely beat them.
But Putin can be in this for the long term. We've seen his track record in these situations. He might be doing this for years.
The guy's unstable. It's clear to see. When I saw his first interview with Putin, I saw how unstable he was, and I thought to myself, wow, this guy's got potential to do something.
Memes painted Starmer as a ghost, a mannequin, even a cardboard cutout with a 404 error stamped on its forehead. Middleton wasn't just mocking a man, he was spotlighting the void at the heart of Her Majesty's most hesitant opposition. What makes the roast so sharp is that Middleton has never pretended to be a politician. He's unpolished, thankfully. He talks like someone who's faced real stakes, not someone whose main goal is keeping donors comfortable. Blunt, brash, but undeniably authentic. In today's politics, authenticity is rarer than a Starmer promise that survives a full news cycle. The beauty? Starmer looked outgunned without even being present. Middleton dropping his opinion was like hurling a grenade into a council meeting debating Labour poster fonts. Even die-hard centrists had to concede Starmer seemed soft, not because of what was said, but because of what wasn't. No strength, no fire, no hint he could handle anything harder than a gentle grilling on breakfast TV. In that void, every word Middleton spoke echoed louder.
And then I got a phone call from my agency saying, Ant, your whole world's about to turn upside down in about 45 minutes to an hour. I said, what do you mean? And then that 45 minutes, an hour came around. The Sun, the Mirror, the Daily Mail, all had these in place, promptu sort of articles coming out. Ant Middleton's been fired by Channel 4. Ant Middleton, fired because of BLM tweet. Ant Middleton fired because of teen tweet, pandemic tweet. That's what it is.
The real sting wasn't the insults. It was that Starmer couldn't lead a squad of toddlers across a soft play area without a 5-point plan and a mid-route stakeholder meeting. Middleton wasn't merely pointing out flaws. He was holding up the mirror to the kind of leader everyone's desperate to avoid. Calculated, cautious, vanilla, with just a hint of bland. This roast quickly became a rallying cry. People started asking what leadership they actually wanted, a speech-generating HR seminar mannequin, or someone who takes responsibility, owns decisions, and actually leads. Middleton's verbal dropkick wasn't just a takedown, it captured a nationwide political midlife crisis. Britain isn't merely tired, it's burnt out, pacing the kitchen at 2 a.m, asking how we ended up with leaders who couldn't motivate a toddler, let alone a country.
Asked me, 12 months, 2 years ago perhaps, about Keir Starmer. Remember, I've been a Labour MP, I've met Keir a couple of times, and I've chatted with him, etc. And I would have said 2 years ago, fairly decent guy, bit to the left for me, but not a bad guy. But now, having seen what's happened since he came to power, I have never been more disappointed. And for him to use the word principles, I think is rich coming from Keir Starmer. I mean, the hypocrisy from all of this, we had to...
Ant Middleton's outburst hit a raw nerve, something millions have muttered into their steering wheels during rush hour. Is anyone actually capable? While politicians stage press conferences and struggle not to sweat on live TV, Middleton has literally navigated enemy territory in pitch-black silence, leading men who trusted him with their lives. So when he looks at Starmer and says, yeah, that bloke couldn't lead ants to a picnic, people feel it in their bones. The problem isn't left or right, Labour or Conservative. It's that both sides seem staffed by human filing cabinets, neat, organised, emotionally dead, and only useful once a year. Voters don't want a spreadsheet in a suit. Middleton brings what most MPs lack: conviction, unmanufactured, untested by focus groups, real enough to make Starmer look painfully tentative.
Johnson had more of a quite a Johnsonian response. He did quite a long post on X, but I think the most intriguing part of that was, "To take care is the orange ball chewing manacled gimp of Brussels."
The orange ball chewing?
Orange ball chewing manacled gimp of Brussels is how he described Keir Starmer. He said, most bizarrely of all, he's agreed that Britain will once again be paying countless millions of pounds into EU coffers for the privilege of becoming the non-voting punk of the EU Commission.
It's a great sentence. You've got to give it to him.
He's got...
That's why it landed so hard. This wasn't just another personality clash between political tribes. It was a soldier yelling into a void of dithering bureaucrats, demanding someone, anyone, show backbone before the whole country collapses under endless committee meetings. Ant Middleton didn't take Starmer down with stats or policies, he exposed the emptiness behind the haircut. And the nation saw it. In a real crisis, we don't need someone to waffle about inquiries or looking into matters. We need someone who can step up and say, "Follow me," and make people actually believe it.